So first, no, you don't have amnesia, although you do have a low IQ, but that's another problem. Yes, this is a re-upload, but I have added additional entries to the list so it isn't entirely a re-upload. I didn't just copy and paste the slop, I did do something with my time this week. But yeah, the original video I uploaded a few months ago got taken down by YouTube, which I think was an automation error, but YouTube support both on the hellhole that is Twitter and their support chats said it wasn't, despite the fact that they took down the video because I apparently showed people doing stuff to themselves which wasn't in the video, and the timestamp they provided as an example where I apparently showed it was just a picture of Zach who made smiling friends. And although he is pretty handsome, I don't think that looked like someone blowing their shit clean off or something. But anyway, I've added 2 more stories to the original video and changed a few things around, like blurring Zach's face and removing anything that may refer to what they removed it for last time, so it doesn't get taken down again. So I hope you enjoy. I was also sick when I made this video, so enjoy my nasally voice, and bye bye for now.
So animation on YouTube has come a long way since its start around 2008, with a lot of creators present on platforms like Newgrounds, which was one of the primary hubs for animated content at the time, and still kind of is. I just remember playing games on it as a kid, like Age of War and The Last Stand, which apparently became its own game. But a lot of creators started uploading their content from Newgrounds to the new and upcoming YouTube, which as of 2007 had just introduced its partner program so you could earn money from your videos. But in the early days this led to animations like the ASDF movie and Nyan Cat, both of which were abused more than any black tar heroin of those days because you could not escape them. Then in the early to mid 2010s, YouTube animation got another big boost with things like storytime animations, which led to the rise of creators like Domix, SwoozyTube, Jade Animations, and Odd Ones Out, which since then has inspired the next wave of creators doing similar content. Animation on YouTube has come a long way since it first started, but what hasn't changed is the fact I am so grateful I am not an animator. Having to sit there for hours on end with keyframes and drawing the same thing 24 times over slightly changed just for a single second of animation, just for your software to inevitably fail and you have to start all over again. Yeah, you can take the cock and ball torture in open winter air elsewhere, thank you very much. I'm not built for that. However, with the rise of animation on YouTube and its many gifts like giving us Zach Hadel, it was still unfortunately not immune from its fair share of infamous creators, and don't get me wrong, it's doing better than other similar communities, especially the art commentary community.
No, I will say that, embarrassingly, Jaden Animations is kind of my YouTube crush. Of course she's way out of my league, and I'm not talking about the real her, I'm talking about her cartoon character.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, forced you to say that, so why did you tell us? But despite the YouTube animator community being revered for its talent, range of personalities, engaging stories, and just overall positive reputation, at the same time there are some creators that seemingly have the opposite effect. So today I thought we'd look at some of said creators and what they did to deserve their reputation as the more infamous side of YouTube animation, starting with one that may be viewed as a more gentle kneecapping compared to the others.
Earlier shows I mentioned, we don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
So one of the entries many would add to this list is Nutshell Animations. You have probably come across their content in one form or another, especially if you are on YouTube Shorts or TikTok, which is another reason to download Instagram Reels, but Nutshell started uploading in 2018 with a lot of his first animations actually using his own personality and voice.
Hi, what can I get you? Hi, yeah, can I get a number 2, 3 number 5s, a number 8, and a number 69?
His start was very similar to the starting point of many other big animation channels. Their art style was constantly developing and changing with each video, topics varied dramatically, and usually their earlier content makes them seem like a completely different channel when you compare it to their later content, but Nutshell would deviate slightly from other animation channels. Whilst yes, if he kept making the storytime and more personal videos, it may have potentially panned out in the future like other animation channels, but he didn't do that. Instead, he found a type of content that was a lot less personal but a lot more profitable in terms of channel growth. And that was animated meme content, taking the audio of a popular meme of the time and animating it most times with his own interpretation of it.
Helicopter, helicopter. Helicopter, helicopter.
Eventually he would build up a library of said short videos, and most were getting a decent amount of views. But YouTube wasn't the only platform he was performing well on, as in 2020 TikTok was reaching new heights in popularity and he had started uploading his content there as well, which to say the least was one of his best decisions, since a lot of his videos racked up millions of views and some even went viral, whilst also directing a small amount of people back to his YouTube channel where they could see content like behind the scenes of some of the animations, and in general some of his longer form content. However, in 2021 with the launch of YouTube Shorts, he would evidently start using that as a vehicle to push his channel further, and his YouTube channel began to mirror his TikTok. He put a lot more effort into short form content than anything else, which was an obvious decision since this was the content that got him the most attention. And with this he would reach 1 million subscribers shortly after in 2022. At this time both his art style and signature characters were easily recognizable, and he would start to be noticed outside of the platforms he regularly posted on. Even at this point he did face some criticism, like how in some videos he would not credit those behind the original audio or idea, and some viewed his content as subjectively cringe or somewhat over-sexualized for the audience he had at the time. But said criticism was outweighed by the success he was seeing from his short form content, and the fact that the audience that regularly viewed his content didn't really seem to care. By September of 2024 he had now reached 9 million subscribers, and still he would continue to grow from there, in the current day sitting at over 10 million subscribers. So you're probably wondering, how can this guy, apart from the critiques I already mentioned, be hated and considered one of the more infamous YouTube animators? Well, I'm getting to it, calm down you ADHD riddled fuck. Well, in January of 2025, the commentary YouTuber Bido999 would make a video where multiple animators had contacted him to share their experience with Nutshell, because Nutshell wasn't doing these almost daily animations by himself. As a matter of fact, it was alleged at this point he wasn't doing much of the animation at all. But you wouldn't know that because he wasn't actively crediting the people behind these videos. And in the video they go on to explain how Nutshell had an army of animators, apparently up to 20, with more often than not most being offered $50 per animated video, despite Nutshell making significantly more per video. One of said animators apparently spent 8 hours per video, and the quality showed, but after only getting paid $50 and sometimes only getting paid after doing 2 videos for him, and there was known issues with how long it would take for him to pay said animators, but with how many hours this animator specifically was putting in, this meant they were getting paid around $6 per hour, which is well below poverty levels, that is straight up sewer levels. And another animator reached out and it only took them an hour and 30 minutes to make their animations for him, with significantly less quality compared to the other animator, and despite doing less work they both got paid the same, even when the one that put more effort in got more views. Now I know animators are notoriously underpaid, and you can question the morals of Nutshell doing this, especially only paying $50 per animation, even though they technically carry his channel and most definitely should be paid more, but these animators agreed to do this work with these conditions. From the video they were told the price beforehand. From what was seen, they were not promised that they were going to be given credit for their work. He even before forbid one of the animators from just commenting on the video saying they drew it, because his agency didn't like it and the channel isn't supposed to have a face or any identity to it. So yes, he is underpaying them and that sucks, but as adults, they are agreeing to be underpaid. No matter how many hours they put towards the content with once again no credit, they still agreed to do it and produce the animations. They could negotiate for more pay or to actually be credited, but admittedly with my own speculation he might have just dropped them and gone for somebody that would take the 50 buckaroos and not take credit. But in my opinion, these animators are adults. They weren't forced to do these animations, they could have refused, but they still did the work and accepted the payment they were offered. And from my understanding, it's not like they were contracts or they were employees of him, it was mostly like commission work. But the key word there was as adults, as further in the video and in their follow-up it's discussed that allegedly Nutshell commissions a number of animators that were underage, which is quite a step up from just fucking over adults to make a profit, which still looks bad, but they are adults. But if those that are being reached out to are underage, and are probably less aware and don't know any better compared to the adults, yeah, it starts to look a lot worse. It starts to look a lot like child labour. On top of him apparently telling them they can do work whenever they want, but then apparently gets frustrated and lectures them when they don't do the work he told them they can do whenever. Yeah, it doesn't look good and is very morally wrong, but he would later respond to the video and the claims against him, basically saying what he was doing wasn't illegal, and he was correct, but morally wrong and possibly taking advantage of people who don't know any better. Yeah, but he eventually took down his response video, and in future videos he did start crediting the creators that animated the videos. It's unsure if he did start paying these people well after this situation, and it didn't have any long-term effects on his channel. It still does pretty well to this day, but I will say his reputation has been significantly affected and is still somewhat negative to this day since it happened.
You ever have a crush on someone you totally shouldn't have? Well, in the 7th grade, I had a forbidden love. My babysitter.
Alex Clark was a YouTube animator that started uploading videos all the way back in 2009 at the age of 24, when YouTube was still new at the time. His first few videos weren't animated at all. Most were either skits, vlogs, or just random IRL videos taken when he was a street performer. He would only start uploading animated videos 4 years after he created the channel, and even after making the switch, he would still upload non-animated videos with his face, like Late Night Secrets with the thumbnail of a man's bulge a few centimeters away from his face. It would take a while for him to hone his craft and get a significant amount of attention on YouTube, but by February of 2016, around 6 years after starting his YouTube channel, Alex had hit 100,000 subscribers, and only a year later in 2017, he would reach over 1 million subscribers. His content around that time was very similar to what other big animation channels were doing, which was storytime animations, where Alex would go into detail about things that had apparently happened to him, with viral hits like "My hot babysitter got me in trouble," "Mario Kart got me a girlfriend," or "My hot babysitter made me." You can kind of see a trend here with his most viewed videos, which just makes me wonder, what the fuck were we watching back then? But anyway, he was mainly popular for his storytime videos, and he regularly collaborated with other creators who made the same type of content, like Swoozy, The Odd Ones Out, and Jaden Animations. And with all that said, what terrible act did Alex Clark do that permanently changed his reputation going forward? Well, it wasn't something illegal or seriously messed up like the later entries on this list, but it was still pretty bad. So Alex would attend VidCon 2016 and he would film a vlog for his channel. And within the vlog you could see other creators, fans, and just his overall experience at the event. However, there was a problem when it came to him finally uploading said video to his channel, because one creator that was featured in the vlog would later reach out to Alex asking for their face not to be shown in the final video, because at the time they were struggling with things like an eating disorder and were uncomfortable with the way they looked in the video. They even offered to censor the footage themselves so Alex didn't have to go out of his way to edit it. But even after censoring and sending over the footage, Alex would still decide to go with the original video with their face uncensored. And the creator who wanted their face censored was Jaden Animations, someone that a year later would upload a video going over why she doesn't do face reveals because of things like her eating disorder, and without mentioning Alex's name, she mentions this event, saying after telling him about her story, he was still insistent on uploading the video without her face being censored, even adding that she's had disagreements with him before and that when his mind is made up about something, he will rarely change it. So with that said, she gave up trying to convince him and let him upload the video. This would only become a problem for Alex after Jaden made this video a year after the events occurred, and people were quickly able to tell that she was referring to Alex despite not naming him. This would result in Alex quickly deleting the video and him getting a significant amount of backlash, to the point where some believe this was the reason why his channel saw a lot less collaborations with other big creators and a lot less attention in the long run. Jaden would mention this event once again years later in 2021 in an interview with Anthony Padilla.
Like, I was like, I'll edit it myself. I edited it all. It took like a couple hours and I sent it back. And then he's like, I think I'm gonna put the one with your face up.
Why?
And I was Jaden, like, VidCon vlog featuring Jaden, my name was first, and like they put hashtag Jaden face reveal and stuff in the tags and stuff, and I was like self-conscious enough to be like, oh, I guess I'm in the wrong here.
Alex would eventually respond in 2023 after almost 6 years since the event happened with his video VidCon 2016 Explained, where he says he got explicit permission from Jaden to post a video and that he only encouraged her to keep it unblurred because he thought it would help her with her self-image problem she had at the time, and that even after the event they continued to collaborate like nothing was wrong, but when she published the video about what happened a year later, he was somewhat caught off guard and was never aware of any of the issues she brought up. He reiterates he didn't do it intentionally and even reached out to Jaden to apologise, and apologised for his actions multiple times throughout the video, whilst also adding that other YouTubers had also shown her face before him, but she had no problem with those people.
And a week before my video went live, a channel with 1 million subscribers posted a video that featured Jaden. As far as I know, the only channel Jaden had issues with was me. If you'd like more details, I'll put an explanation on the screen, which you can read.
However, this really didn't do much to improve his image or reputation. It was far too late now to do a video on your side of the story over 6 years after it happened, when most people have already made their minds up and moved on from it. He does still upload to this day, but he isn't seeing anywhere near the viewership he saw before.
Batman, there's no laws against the Pokemon, Batman. I can do whatever I want with it. No, don't do it. I'm gonna do it, Batman.
So the Nyan Wolf situation is still a topic that is argued about to this day, from people calling the fallout they faced justified to some even calling it an absolute nothing burger. And it's a fairly short story, so calm down and hold your horses. We are going to get into the deviance of society pretty soon. So Nyan Wolf was an animator mainly known down to one animation he made called Don't Touch My Pizza, which apparently had its own drama.
Don't touch my pizza, don't touch my jelly.
Arguably, that music is still much better than anything we got during the YouTube diss track era. But this video now sits at over 9 million views, and it was so popular that Nyan Wolf's character Kevin was added to a Roblox game called Forsaken, which from my point of view is basically Dead by Daylight without Dead by Daylight's terrible community. I don't care what you say, the only fun thing to do in that game is play the killer. I cannot understand how anyone plays Survivor. Anyway, he got the skin in the Roblox game with its own music, and things looked like they were going pretty well. Well, it was till the skin was removed out of nowhere, which surprised a lot of people, but there was a YouTube video that was later uploaded explaining why Nyan Wolf's skin had been removed, and it was down to some of the activity Nyan Wolf was doing on his private alt accounts, as he was found to be liking and reposting content that many would use to claim they are a degenerate, and at worst, things like a zoophile, which is a person that likes doing things to animals. And there were some posts they interacted with showing they had a preference towards gas. I'm personally refraining from making a pyrocynical reference, by the way. It was further proven that the alt accounts were actually him because 1, the art styles were very similar, and 2, someone actually just DM'd the alt account and he confirmed it was him, and when questioned about the art he was liking on the platform, he said he didn't realise it was that stuff and he was high whilst interacting with it, but some of the art he was liking and responding to was considered by many to be feral porn, which is fairy characters that have animal-like anatomies, and usually members of the fairy community are against this and don't like to be associated with ferals, but that was why people applied the zoo tag to them, even though to be fair, there was no further evidence shown that they intended to do this to actual animals, but the fact they were interacting with this disgusting art is still pretty bad, and I can understand why the Forsaken dev team would take action after being presented all of this. Nyan Wolf would eventually respond to the allegations on a YouTube community post they edited multiple times, basically saying that some allegations people are spreading like he's a predator are false because yes, people were circulating that allegation despite no evidence. They go on to say the pictures they were being so-called cancelled for, a majority were apparently NSFW drawings of fat Pokemon, which was something he also clarified in a Twitter post. He says the other posts he interacted with was feral art and he apologizes, also clarifying he doesn't support that art, whilst also reiterating whilst he was using the account he was very high. And he'd finish off by saying he didn't hurt anybody, he's in therapy, he is no longer taking drugs, and he's done with the drama and moving on. Now some would debate if it was better if it was just fat Pokemon art. I think it's classified as semi-feral or something, and some would argue it was just as bad as feral. Maybe there's a bit of nuance there, I guess, but at least you can say it is still pretty weird, but claiming he full-on supports Zootopia or does it himself is a bit of a stretch. People are also very critical of the original video exposing him, as some said that when they were covering the topic they weren't unbiased and were way too against Nyan Wolf, but the video that initially kicked all of this off has now been deleted for unknown reasons. Either way, it still probably was the correct decision for the Forsaken devs to remove the skin with the drama surrounding it, and the fact kids mainly play the game, which is something Nyan also agreed with in later community posts, saying he wanted a more mature audience anyway. Since then, Nyan is still active on places like Twitter and Instagram, where he still has a decent following, and this is still something people bring up about them to this day.
Do you suspect some alien subterfuge behind this failure?
So James Bear was a YouTuber that started uploading in 2014, and in his earlier content you could see he was clearly inspired by the late Eddsworld's YouTube series, even attempting to make his own version of it called Jamworld, which continued all the way to 2018, but you probably won't recognise some of his earlier work, you would more recognise his animations for specifically this character, Claire. And videos like After November are reference to what happens after No Nut November. Nothing happens, by the way, it's not like the Shangri-La Easter egg your semen doesn't get a pack-a-punch or some shit. But James started to gain more traction around 2019, especially on videos involving Claire, in which he would soon reach 100,000 subscribers in December of the same year, and his channel would continue to grow from there, reaching 300,000 subscribers in September of 2021. Now I could say James was a very promising animator and he potentially could have become an even bigger animator in the future, but one, it was too early to tell, and two, in the following year of 2022, James Bear's YouTube career would come to a crashing halt, all down to his own deplorable actions. Just to warn you, from this point on, the things discussed get quite disturbing and graphic, so viewer discretion is advised going forward. Don't say I didn't warn you, this is about to get very, very bad very, very fast. So in 2022, a post would be made on Twitter by someone called Lelo Does Art about the very disgusting things James had done. But James at that point had been exposed for these same things multiple times, and multiple people had known about them beforehand. Because James was apparently very open about this, especially in conversation. But the first document about this was posted in 2017, but the document was basically unreadable, and the guy that posted it had his own motive, which was to get James to break up with Claire, an actual person, and was James's girlfriend. And the person that made the document wanted them to break up because this guy was an ex-boyfriend of Claire, and Claire had broken up with the person that wrote the document and then started dating James. So basically his motive was revenge, not bringing to light the things James had done. And that is later supported because he would blackmail James, saying if he didn't break up with Claire, he would keep the document up, and they would strike some sort of deal, leading to the document poster publicly admitting the document was false and fabricated. Now it's probably because of things like this before 2022 the claims against James went unnoticed. That, and because every time James responded or even admitted to the things he did, he would delete the response or private his account, and each time his responses were either lost to time, not well documented, or fell on deaf ears. But in 2022 the user Lola Does Art made a post on Twitter with an entire archive of all the documents, James's previous responses, and finally the story had reached a wider audience, and evidently James's audience. Now I've prolonged this long enough, but what did James do? Well, to be blunt, as far back as 2013, when James had just become a teenager, he had a relationship with his sister, who was 4 years younger than him. He would discuss this with multiple people. In screenshots, he blames most of it on depression, his health, and his dad emotionally abusing him, which didn't excuse him from anything. He would say this happened multiple times, all the way to 2016, and even an excuse that it was all consensual, which doesn't help anything considering her age. She was the victim. But quickly after this surfaced, he rightfully lost his platform. He tried explaining himself multiple times with different excuses, but it didn't work. And in 2024, he would make his 8th and last response before going silent on all platforms. Around that time, someone claiming to be his sister would come out with their own document, claiming James didn't stop what he was doing in 2016 and continued to SA her, with his last attempt being in 2020, and more about the things James had done in disturbing detail, and even that she had told her mother at one point and she did nothing, and the proof that she was the sister was a picture of his setup, and she asked if people could donate so she could escape her current living situation, but she would then take down the document due to her family apparently disagreeing with this choice, and apparently she did all of this because she was upset, and in James's response video she would apparently be present, corroborating the story that none of this ever happened. The thing he admitted to in DMs multiple times, even made public posts admitting to it when confronted, never happened.
This is Alicia speaking, or in other words, this is his sister speaking, and what my brother James is saying is true. First, I would like to give my deepest apology to everyone for spreading misinformation about my brother and about my own family. Truth be told, that I only came forward because I was only upset, and my reasons for being upset were petty and I had a falling out with a friend. Back in 2022, when James was making his last big response on the whole situation, I was actually going to help clear his name back then, but he insisted that he would do all of this on his own since he didn't want me or any more of his family members to be involved after the drama, and especially the doxing situation. He basically took the blame for nothing. Even after all this time, it was never easy for him to admit that nothing happened between us, when truly he was innocent for the most part. Lastly, I want people to know that my family is not silencing me in any way. I overreacted when the police got involved for the second time.
Obviously after this, people thought this wasn't her or James or the family forced her to do this due to things like previous doxing attempts and police being called to their house, but there would never be any answers if that was the case because, as said, James has been silent since. But still to this day, James Bear is a name many regard with infamy. So this person on the list wasn't well known within the animation community initially, but when this situation concluded, they wouldn't be known to just the internet, but much wider, primarily due to the things they did. This person is Cristali, and they were a part of the animation meme community. Not like some of the content the previous people I talked about dabbled in, but a specific flavour of the animation community where it's basically like an AMV. It's not really supposed to be funny like you would think a meme would be, but it's supposed to be satisfying to watch with the catchy music and potentially goofy animations. This type of animation has always had a home on YouTube and still to this day is quite popular, mainly in communities like Gacha Life, although in the aftermath of this situation and what they were exposed for, a lot of their content would be removed from the internet, but has been archived on re-upload channels. It's said they started making this content around 2017, and what was known about them around this time from what they told their audience is that she was a teenager from Guatemala who, apart from her native language, was also pretty fluent in English, as seen through her regular interactions with her community through videos responding to comments.
I thought to say hi like this. So here we go. Thanks to Delphi, to Chicken the Nugget.
Now, despite starting in 2017, her channel grew pretty fast, gaining 1,000 subscribers in the first few months, and nearing the end of the following year, almost 80,000 subscribers, and at their peak, 100,000 subscribers in 2019. However, such a fast rise was not without its fair share of controversies. The usual age for the audience of this type of content is fairly young, apparently 13 to 24, but in my opinion it's more towards the lower ages of that range. But they would start to receive some criticism for some of their uploads which you could say were sexually charged, on top of the fact they had a Patreon that was straight up serving NSFW art for a price, and with some of said art being of other YouTubers in the same niche as them, which not only is extremely weird to have on a YouTube channel that kids mainly visit, but making weirder NSFW art of other creators' characters that said kids can access for your own monetary gain is fucking terrible. Also around this time, people would start to notice some of their animations and artwork were traced from other creators. She would start to receive some backlash for these actions, and a lot of creators she had traced would add fuel to the fire publicly criticizing them, but the backlash wouldn't result in anything really happening for the most part. They would later apologize, essentially saying they had Parkinson's and it was hard to draw because of that, and some would just brush this off as them not knowing any better because they were a young teen. But that excuse would only work if they were a young teen and actually who they said they were, because it would be discovered not only by some of their earlier uploads they had taken down, but by later allegations against them that Cristali wasn't in their teens. They were actually 4 years older than what they said they were and was 20, and not only that, they were not a female at all.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex and today we're recording a new video to question and answer. That's it? Answer questions? It is? Or no?
And that voice you heard earlier, that was one of the many females he commissioned for the voiceover for videos, who also weren't very happy that they were not being credited for said work because Cristali wanted to keep up this facade. So an adult man was basically running a YouTube channel pretending to be a teenage girl whilst also creating sexually charged videos they were tracing and advertising straight up NSFW content he was making on a different platform. Yeah. It gets worse, by the way. So the person behind Cristali was David Alejandro Pascual Argueta, born January 7th, 1998, and when people started to slowly find out he wasn't who he said he was, he would kind of go back and forth owning it and denying it. He would upload videos with his face talking, and then he would quickly delete them after, and then he would go back to uploading the same content like nothing ever happened. But for a little while longer, he would still have a platform, down to some still not being aware he was a guy and some simply not caring. But that wouldn't be for long. Actually, not only would he lose his platform, he would also rightfully lose his freedom. Around 2018, a video would be uploaded by LEMMiNO, someone that had previously done a collab with Cristali, going into how he had sent her disturbing messages, NSFW content, and had been requesting inappropriate pictures of her despite her being a minor and him knowing her age. This video is also one of the reasons people found out who he actually was. And once again, you would think this would be enough to end Cristali, but this situation wasn't covered significantly around this time. On top of the fact Cristali or David had weaponized his audience, harassing and even at one point doxing other creators who dare speak about his interactions with this minor. This meant that the name Cristali was able to exist with somewhat of a following for a bit longer past 2018 into 2019. And it also meant there would be more victims, with another case where he had apparently been dating a minor that was 8 years younger than him when he was in his 20s, and he did the same thing he did to the other victim. And 2 other creators who were also minors would come out with their stories on David, where he would once again message them inappropriately, request pictures, and send explicit pictures to them. And finally, a lot more people would take notice, and eventually even more creators, with more victims coming out with their stories. With the amount of people that now knew about the situation, a number of reports would be made against David's YouTube channel and to David's local law enforcement, where David in April of 2019 would be taken into custody and have all of his devices seized, and all of this was recorded and covered on his local news. In an article regarding this, it would say that he was accused of receiving photographs of underage girls and making sexualized anime copies of the images to then sell on illegal websites. The charge against him would be trafficking, in which he would only receive 3 years and 5 months in jail. And apparently, due to the length of the sentence in Guatemala, he could potentially pay a set fee to avoid going to jail at all. but you would still have to go on the sex offender registry and have to comply with anything the court has set, like house arrest or parole. Now we don't know if he actually did get this offer to pay or if he did go to jail. There was no other news regarding this, and obviously people were disturbed the sentence was so short. But by now those 3 years and 5 months would be over, and despite his main channel being removed in 2021, some have theorized he is still on the internet, operating another YouTube account, but there has been no significant evidence to prove these proposed channels may be his. Make sure to check out Jormy49's video on this. A lot of the information here was found through his video, and he also goes into way more depth about the deplorable things this person has done.
What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Oh, that's a nice headlock, sir.
So those were some YouTube animators who are infamously regarded in the community. Obviously some worse than others, and some that have left a stain on the history of YouTube animation for one reason or another, and unfortunately there were a lot more I could have mentioned, but YouTube animation nowadays is doing fine. You have some genuinely impressive and entertaining creators on the platform, and instances like this are rare and obviously not unique to animation, although there are quite a lot. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to talk about today. Don't forget to check your absolutely desolate Discord DMs, and that's all I had to say, and bye bye.